Okay, I found out what my issue was. It's what's called a pepcac issue. A lot of people don't use that term, but if you look closely, I'm calling tutorial2c game controls. This is the old version of the code. This is the kind of thing you can happen to, well, it happens to me at least. I also noticed that I had the syntax for how I was inputting information in wrong. So I'm going to have a width of 5, let's say. I should be doing a forward slash, a height of 10, and then I'm going to have a player position of 3 and 3, let's say. Okay, what this is should be doing, it should be outputting. So I had two exes right here and right here. So that's what happened. Okay, what I should be doing, what I should be getting here is it should be getting all these different parameters. It's going to find out where the /w is, where the /h was, and where the /p is, and it's going to get the variables after that fact. That's what my program is designed to do, at least. We're going to find out. Hey, there it goes. This is that original for loop that I said I had, right? It had a whole bunch of arguments, including one of the arguments being the actual call to the function itself. The second argument, at position 1, if you will, has a w, a /w, a 5, a /h, a 10, /p, a 3, and a 3. That's that for loop that I had in my code. And here it is. Here's this for loop. After this, I made 3 different functions. You don't have to do this, but I liked doing this. 3 different functions that take all of my arguments and I find the player position based off of those arguments, which is I find where that /p is, and then I get the next 2 parameters afterwards. And that becomes a position. I made a structure called a player called a position up here, which takes in 2 numbers. So here's me making a struct with 2 numbers in it. Let me see what other things I have in here. And then I have get the width, which will find where the w is and take the number after that. And I have get height, which will take the value after this /h. After all is said, and here is what I originally had. This is what I was showing you earlier. I commented it out, but I left it in so you can look at it. Here is all the ways I could. I'm manually getting information for the user using scanf or using cn. Well, I'm using scanf here, but you could use cn. All right, and then afterwards I have this game loop, and the game loop is going to be doing everything in my code. If I go to what my game loop looks like, I should be able to find it here. Control F is your friend. I have a player position, I have a width and a height, and all I'm going to be doing is getting information from the play. So I'm going to make a grid of characters, a 2-dimensional grid of characters. I'm going to take all my enemies, put them at a particular position. So these are my enemy positions that I'm going to keep around. These are just characters I'm going to stuff in there every time. I'm going to figure out where my character is going to move. I'm going to update my grid based on my player position. I'm going to update where the player is located and where the enemies are located. I am then going to print my grid, and then I'm going to ask for the user action again. We will look at this later on. This is a model view controller approach to things. Not exactly, but it's pretty close. The idea is, what I don't want to do is figure out what the player is doing from the user and immediately change how things are printed on the screen. I want to separate drawing stuff on the screen, updating what's going on, like the logic of the game, and user input. I want those as 3 completely separate ideas, and that's how I normally. This is actually how video games are designed. In case you think it's just me, no, pretty much every game is designed this way. It will be absolute madness if you try to do the rendering or drawing of your scene at the same time as updating your scene at the same time as getting user input. You don't mix those up. You keep them separate. And we'll get to that when we look at model view controllers. And then at the end of the day, I'm going to free up my 2-dimensional array, and I'm going to finish my game loop when I've typed in a cue. The big thing for this lab is just to make sure you can get the user input and make a grid. The actual game itself, you can play around with that yourself. It's good exercise. Okay, so what we're doing is we're dealing with command line by going into command or terminal, navigating using either, you can look it up if you're stuck on this, but it's a good practice, either dir or ls for Mac users or Linux users. You'll also be using cd for change directory in both those cases. and you'll navigate to where your executable file is. You will just type in the name of your executable file and a bunch of parameters afterwards, so it'll look something like this. And then it'll start your program with those parameters, and you can see how that actually works. So that way, you don't actually have to hard code in numbers. You can run your program, pull those values from the arguments or the initial program call, the arguments for the program call, and have your program adapt to whatever starting conditions you want. Okay, with that, I'm going to stop the video, and thank you very much for listening.